"Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest." These words from Jesus are very comforting for us. When our burdens seem impossible to bear, when our best efforts fail, when we are close to collapse, we lean on these words. We grab them and hold them tight. It is a promise that offers hope, help. It is a picture of a God who lifts the loads off our backs and replaces them with a lighter burden. Lighter because we are yoked with one greater than we are, and with whose strong help we can bear any burden. That's what it means to us today. But it meant something very different when Jesus first said it. He had just finished a preaching mission in several Galilean cities. It had not been a success. His reception had been less than warm. The people in the cities were smart and capable. They were occupied by Rome, but their local economies and their religious communities were still working. They were not looking for help from Jesus or anyone else. Whatever gifts he had hoped to give to them, they declined to take. In other words, this mission was a failure. Jesus didn't get run out of town, but the lives of those who heard him did not change at all. In the passage, we hear Jesus' response to that failure. After heaping some powerful reproaches on those who did not welcome him, he thanks God for showing things to simple people that wise and understanding people could not see. He says this is God's doing, so that no one will confuse human wisdom and understanding with divine revelation. Those who know God do not arrive at such knowledge by their own natural intelligence or capable efforts. They know because God has chosen to be known. Next, Jesus offers to lighten the load of all who are carrying heavy burdens, some of which have been laid on their shoulders by wise and understanding people. In Jesus' day, this burden might have literally been sticks and bricks, the increasing weight of paying taxes to Rome, or the more visible load of any of life's griefs and fears. But knowing Jesus, knowing how he accused the religious leaders of his day of increasing the burden on people, it is also very likely Jesus is talking about religious burdens as well. Those who followed him were a small minority in Judaism. This was not a difference between Jews and Christians. This was a struggle between Jews and Jews. It was no less bitter than the ones we see in Christian circles today. At issue were not only who had authority to speak for God, but also what those authorities said about the kind of yoke God placed on humankind. Then, as now, some proposed weightier requirements than others did. Then, as now, some placed more value on their own view of those requirements than others. That debate raged not only once long ago in a land far away, it continues today. Whenever and wherever God's people meet to decide what it means to know and follow God. Matthew's gospel is not about a struggle between two different religious traditions. It is about the struggle within one tradition over what exactly are the requirements of faith. Thanks to Paul, most Christians recognize this as a debate between works and grace. In his tradition, when Jesus offered his heavy-laden listeners a lighter yoke, he was offering them a religion of grace to replace the religion of works under which they were laboring. The truth is, every human being who longs to know God lives with the tension between grace and works. On one hand, we long to believe God comes to us as we are, utterly unimpressed by the tricks we do to win God's love. On the other hand, we live in a world where those tricks often work really well, so that it is next to impossible to give them up and to give up believing in them. Follow us around for a day or two, and you may discover what we believe most by how we act. I may believe that I live by God's grace alone, but I act like a scout collecting merit badges. I have a list of things to do that is a mile long, and while there are a number of things on that list that I genuinely want to do, most of them are things I think I ought to do, or should do, or better do, or God won't love me anymore. I may believe that my life depends only on God's grace, but I often act like it depends on me and how many good deeds I can perform, as if every day were a talent show and God has to keep up with my score. We have a perverse way of turning Jesus' easy yoke back into a hard one again by driving ourselves and others to do more and more, when all God has ever asked is that we belong to him. That comes first. Everything else follows. But we often get the order backwards. We think there are all kinds of requirements to be met first, rules to follow, burdens to bear. So we are not free to belong to God. We are too loaded down by our jobs, our families, our responsibilities, and by something deeper down in us, something that keeps telling us we must prove ourselves worthy or we will never earn God's love. It is the most tiring work in the world, and it never gets done. There are two kinds of yokes in the world, single and shared. Single are very efficient. Put a yoke across your shoulder and buckets hanging down from poles on each side, and you can carry almost as much as animals can. You may get tired and have to sit down to rest. Your shoulders will ache, and your back may give out. But it is still possible to move great loads from one place to another, using only one creature and the single yoke. A shared yoke works differently. It requires two, but if they are well matched, they can work all day long, because under the shared yoke, one can rest while the other pulls. They can take turns, cover for each other without having to lay down their burden, because their yoke is a shared one, and they have company all day long. And when the day is done, they may both be tired, but neither is exhausted, because they are a team. Plenty of us labor under the illusion that our yoke is a single one, that we have to go it alone, that the only way to please God is to load ourselves down with heavy requirements, good deeds, pure thoughts, blameless lives, perfect obedience, all those rules that we make and break, make and break, make and break. While all the time, Jesus is standing right there in front of us, half a shared yoke across his shoulders, the other half wide open and waiting for us. Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. To God be the glory forever. Amen.